All right, then. So let's start. At the moment, we have 38 participants in our session here, and yes. Um, Hi, everybody. Welcome to my session about the practice workshop Culture Change. First, I'd like to tell you something about me. My name is Jens Bothmer. I'm an innovation consultant based here in the Frankfurt Rhine-Main area and in Germany, and my topics are design thinking, digital collaboration, and change. And I'm a facilitator, consultant, and trainer, and today I'm your host of this session. So before we start, I would like to show where I'm living because I think we have a lot of international guests here, participants. So I'm from the Frankfurt area here. So this is a very nice city. We have the Main River here, and there is this nice river shore. It's really nice, especially in summer. So there are a lot of sport activities and barbecues and lots of people. So you can imagine what's going on the river shore here in summer. We are, of course, the finance city of Europe. So because the European Central Bank is based here in Frankfurt. And yes, this is some local stuff. That's what we drink here. This is a very traditional drink. It's cider or apple wine or Apfelwein as we call it. So this is a typical jug made here in Frankfurt, the Bembel we call it. And well, you're invited to visit Frankfurt. In my opinion, it is a great underrated city. Come here and find out. You're invited. And well, everybody who likes Frankfurt, just give me a thumb up here in Zoom. That would be really nice. Please have your gear prepared. Please mute your microphones, log into your accounts. So I think everybody who registered for this session is into this topic of culture change and like to be inspired today. As you all know, this could be, so this session, this workshop, this could be just a kind of poke or I would say a nudge, a little nudge to get you into the method. So these 45 minutes, of course, it's not enough time to roll out or to present the whole method here. So I will be the host of this session, and I'm not sure if we will take the full hour, especially to give you some rest after the different sessions you already had. So perhaps we can move to the next slide. It's here, so that's how your desk should look like. So I hope that everybody has printed here the culture map and had prepared some sticky notes, 5 colors, a marker, and perhaps a good coffee or a good tea. That would be nice. All right, so the agenda of today will be, we will dig into a warm-up. Then I will introduce you a short story, and then we will have a presentation of the culture map. And after that, you will work with the culture map and synthesize your findings. And someone then can present his version of the culture map after the synthesizing. So don't be shy, share your results. I think everybody would be glad to share his opinions then of your results. Perhaps we find then some time to discuss how the findings are going to be in an operational mode. So this depends on the time frame we are working in. So everybody who knows me knows that I'm really passionate about warm-ups, and I really love them because there's so much you can learn from good warm-ups. So there's fun, there's entertaining, warm-ups are connecting people, and there's always good takeaway. So we begin first with a warm-up. And for this warm-up, I'd like you to be prepared to log in into your Twitter account. If you don't have Twitter, feel free to use the chat here of Zoom. You're invited to use the chat here. All right, so this is a warm-up. This is an online warm-up. So I'd like you to create a short story in 6 words. So, and the topic, of course, is change. So this topic can be related to the family, to a romance, to your love, to business, to innovation. So it depends on you. So please put it into your as a tweet in your Twitter line. Please add me and the hashtag of dtcamp, and so then we are looking what kind of funny stories or severe stories you will create then. Right, here this is an example. This is a short story, and that's my proposal for the first short story. Suddenly she dared to kiss him. 6 words, short story. Now you have 1 minute time to create your short story. Use the chat of this Zoom session or use Twitter. 1 minute time, please. All right, time is up. So I see here in the chat some really nice short stories, sometimes related to the actual situation. And now I enjoy having dinner online. This is certainly a change. Yes, they had won the lottery. Of course, this would be a big change. So I was able to appreciate it. This appreciation is a good one. Looking outside, she finally saw it, looking for something she always looked for. Okay, thank you very much. So now we get warm up with the word of change. And now I'd like to tell you a short story about an experiment which took place in the 1960s. So there have been this sociology experiment from the 1960s, and there have been these monkeys which have been placed in a cage with a batch of bananas hung from the ceiling and a letter placed underneath it. So that means this is banana, and there was a letter underneath it. So then, of course, as you could imagine, it took only a few seconds for one of the monkeys then to raise up the letter and to grab the bananas. Huh? But the next day, whenever any of the monkeys started up the letter, the researchers sprayed all of the monkeys with ice cold water. So, of course, well, soon of the monkeys learned to not go up the ladder. And if any of them started to, then the others would hold them back by pulling on their tail or even beat them up. And I don't know if you have seen chimpanzees or monkeys, if they're going violent, so they can be really brutal. This was done repeatedly until each monkey had learned the lessons. So no one climbs the ladder because no banana is worth it. Huh? So once all monkeys have been imprinted to avoid the ladder, the researchers substituted in a new monkeys. Huh? And wouldn't you know it, the new guy monkey spots the beautiful banana. He just saw it, the yellow juicy banana, and goes up the ladder. And guess what? What did the other monkeys do? Yeah, the other monkeys, knowing the drill, jump on the new guy and beat him up. And now here comes the very interesting point. One by one, the researchers replaced each monkey until none of the monkeys in the cage had been sprayed by icy water. And yet none of these new monkeys would go up the ladder either. So the rules had been set because that's just the way we do things around here. Perhaps you have heard this sentence in your organization. That's just the way we do things around here. So what is the conclusion of this story? And I ask you, what is your banana? What is your banana in your organization or in your culture? So you know where I'm going to with this story, right? Perhaps you know people who are a lot like those monkeys. So perhaps they look a little bit like that. So of course we don't know why, but we are not taking the banana on the upside. And there is an upside. We learn from one another. We don't let down our mates, of course not, and we get along in the organization. But on the downside, we don't bother to examine the rules as they have been handed down. So we are not questioning the rules. So that means there are behaviors which could be changed, but how? That's a big question. Huh? So again, do you have this banana thing in your organization? Huh? So let's go from this short story into the presentation. And I'd like to show you here these questions to understand what is culture. So how can you sense culture, or how do you sense culture in your organization? Huh? So let's again use the chat here. Let's use the chat and just answer this question for the next minute. So how do you sense culture in your organization? Okay, 1 minute time, please use the timer. Yes, okay, Anke said learned behavior from the past. Yes, it could be exactly, it could be a banana thing. Huh? Hidden rules, of course, hidden rules. Huh? Family, interesting, yeah. So background of the family, huh? Politics, of course, politics. Shared stories about how things work. And mostly these are bad stories, these are not good stories. Huh? Learn and share, become digital. This is more or less the future. No harmony, depends on, yes, hierarchy and long bureaucratic ways, especially in traditional organization. Established micropolitics, yes, between silos, huh? Yes, diverse, contradictory cultures, diversity, of course, but this could be also a chance. Yeah, right. So time is up, 1 minute is gone. So yes, you're all right. So more or less you already posted the answers in the chat. So culture, if you look at culture from a visual point of view, then you can see the results. It's the design, could be the design of processes, could be also the design of the furnitures of the management, and of course the behavior you're experiencing in the company. So is it very kind or sometimes a little bit rough? Then it was said in the chat, and there are rules, there are resources. Are you able to get the right resources, for instance, for your project? And are you invited because you succeeded in your project and you got an incentive, I don't know, taking part in some journey to go to Mexico, or a punishment? So you're not invited to some very important events. Yes, as you just mentioned in the chat, we had, for instance, the punishment that you're not invited to some events. And of course, culture is immanent, so you can't see it, you can't feel it. There are behaviors, so there are routines, there are values, and there are beliefs. And I think I've seen it here in the chat. So most of this criteria, how to sense culture, have been exactly named here now, which is okay. So because before we dig into the culture map here, I'd like you to answer this question for yourself. If you know any cues in your organization which lead to a specific or desired or unwanted behavior through cultural imprinting. So 1 minute left. Do you know any cues in your organization which lead to a specific desired or unwanted behavior? 1 minute time for yourself. Try to find an answer. So if you like to, you can use again the chat, and perhaps you can post it here. Not agreeing to disagree. Yeah, so doing any initiatives you might fail. Oh boy. Okay, time is up. Again, 1 minute. So now I'd like to show you here the culture map. So it's probably the most simple canvas we know. Here we have only these 3 squares, and one square, and there, the one in the middle, it's about behaviors. The lower one is about enablers and blockers, and here are the outcomes. And so if we have a closer look, what it does mean here, so we now change the presentation over here. Let's go here. And there we see the culture map. And the culture map, so, well, if you would use a metaphor, the behaviors in your organization, they are a little bit here, as you can see here, like the trunk of a tree. And there are these roots. So the roots, they get the water, they get the nutrition. Here you have the soil, then you put here fertilizer. So exactly, so these are kind of the behaviors. And of course, there is here the tree top. So that means the behaviors are more or less the tree trunk, and the enablers and the blockers, which then will go through the trunk into our tree top, will define in the end our outcomes. And of course, in the tree top, so there will be some nice fruits here. So some apples we put here. And of course, they're big and red and juicy. That's what everybody like to have. So that means enablers and blockers, they're coming here and feed our roots. So that means then the energy is going through the behaviors into the top of the outcomes, and the outcomes represent more or less the top of the tree. And now it's a matter if the enablers and blockers are positive or negative. So of course these can lead to very dry and small fruits over here in our tree. So the aim is dealing with culture map to define first of all the behaviors, to see how they are blocked or being enabled, and then to see, okay, what's their impact on the outcome. And so now I will go further with the presentation. And that's how you would deal here with the culture map. So in the following slide, I show you some impressions of my workshops. Usually I work for my customers in a bigger environment or a small environment, depends on the aim. So this is just for you some impressions or an atmosphere how the workshop is being run. Here, I think what's important to run good workshops is time boxing, because good time boxing is enabling you to focus. It's enabling you to get deliveries, and it's enabling you to, in the combination of all of them, the focus, the deliveries, and the stability, to have in the end a good feeling, because in the end, you're hired as a consultant or a facilitator to deliver a good result. So that's what we do as well in our workshop. So for each of these squares, I'd like you to use 5 minutes to put in the different answers for the different questions here. So we're not beginning now, so we're still in the introduction. So first of all, we focus on the different behaviors. So behaviors are specific, they're concrete, they're tangible, they're observable. So more or less how you just described it in the slide before, when you were entering the answers in the chat. So this could be that we have a good requirement management or definitions in our organization. But if you're an IT or software company, so we have a superficial testing, for instance, and perhaps our projects, they are slow, and we have an exhausting project management. These are the behaviors. And of course, there are enablers and blockers. So a typical blocker is daily business or no training for the employees. A typical enabler could be the opposite. So training or best practice. Perhaps our HR department is doing a good job and they already set up some Moodle or web-based training, solutions, or we have a good program run by the HR department to train our employees. And of course, a blocker could be that we don't have any test know-how. So people or the business who order some products, they click here and click there, and we don't know how to test the software. So this is definitely a blocker. On the opposite, or another enabler would be that the HR department did a good job, and they have a good definition of the role model. So, and after that, we dig into the outcomes. So that means the outcomes are as well tangible results. They are often expressed. You can see them. You can see them in figures or in terms, time and money. So these are the most known outcomes. So, but as well, there are outcomes like our project management is time consuming, and we have time consuming communication. So it's always ping pong back and forth, and it's not progressing. So then we have these bugs in our releases, or we have long realization phases. And so these are positive or negative outcomes. So, okay, so that's what this culture map is mainly about. And of course, if when you're answering the questions, you get ideas how to prevent it, perhaps some actions, some plans, some programs. And for that, you would use here the blue sticky notes and like a parking lot, and you would just put them there, and to put them here in the parking lot to use them further when you're then synthesizing the culture map. All right then, so let's move forward. Let's go into work now, in the work mode now. I'd like you now to fill in the canvas for your organization or for yourself. So there are different innovation methods how to do it. So you could do this as is, like the current situation you're facing, or for instance, as it should be. But I'd like you to focus on the current situation as is. And first of all, we are beginning with the behaviors. So these are the questions. If you didn't download the canvas, I'd like you to just put down the 3 squares. So this works also, and you can use the question I'm displaying here via the Zoom session. So 5 minutes time for you now, and try to answer the questions on your canvas. All right, is the job clear? Is it clear? You're fine with it? Yeah, okay, right. So what does a great day look like? What does a terrible day here look like in your organization? How do we do things around here? What is a specific example of a typical behavior? Write it down. How would you describe it as a scene, perhaps in a movie, like storytelling or in a storyboard? Or can you tell a story about a typical pattern of behavior, for instance, in your organization? So, and while you're doing it, so what we can do is we can hop over here to Jambo. She is here doing a sketchnote for me. And hi, Jambo. Thank you very much. And she's sharing her ideas about the session here on this sketchnote board. Thank you very much. So another 3 minutes to go. Or perhaps I can ask here some question. Are you using this culture map as previous diagnosis? Well, you can use it, of course, huh? But there are as well other ways. All right, some 2 minutes to go. Okay, so let's head over to the next slide. Now we're coming to the enablers and blockers. So it's the very lower or the low square in the canvas. So please write down enablers and blockers for certain behaviors. Huh? So why do we behave in the way that we do? So it's this banana thing. What causes or influences our behaviors? What are leaders saying or doing that enables these behaviors? How are people rewarded for their behaviors? So are they being promoted? Are they invited to go on some islands, or are they allowed to join the management meetings? Just some examples. So how does the physical workplace enable certain behaviors, or as well the digital? Huh? What needs are being met by these behaviors? What blocks us from behaving differently? Huh? So is it this thing about values, about stories we have been told? Or yes, and what kind of unwritten rules are existing in your organization, and what habits or routines are easy to change? So another 5 minutes, please. Put your enablers and blockers down in the lower square, please. So how are you coping with these questions? Just give me, so if this is all right, the time frame and as well the questions, just give me a thumb up or down in the chat if you like to. Hi, welcome Annette. So we are already in working mode. The participants, they're filling in their culture map canvases. Okay, perhaps we can use the time while you're writing down the answers for the questions. I can see again what's going on here. Oh, it's Jambo. All right. Everybody finished, or do you need some more time? Just to be in the schedule. Time is advancing fast. All right then, so these have been the enablers and blockers, and then now focus on the outcomes. Huh? So if you remember, now we did here the behaviors and the enablers and the blockers, and perhaps you already found some ideas on how to deal with these enablers and blockers or with the behaviors. And now we will focus on the outcomes. So what results are we seeing? What happens because of our behavior? What are we getting done? And what is the impact of the behaviors or the enablers and blockers? Huh? So 5 minutes again. Timer is on. Okay, let's see how we're progressing here. Yes, the behaviors, enablers, blockers, and of course the outcomes. Half of the time is over for the outcomes. What results are we seeing in our organization? What happens because of our behavior? What's the root cause for our outcome? What are we getting done? How can we enable to get more done? All right, so let's move on. So then now your culture map should look like this, huh? And you will have some enablers, positive or negatives. Perhaps you have some ideas, and here you have the behaviors, and here the outcomes. So what we are now going to do is, this is not sorted, this is not synthesized. We will go into the culture map, and we now will synthesize these findings. So first of all, we look at the behaviors, and we check in going, what is causing this behavior, for instance. So in this case, or in this example on the culture map, so no test know-how, click here and there. Because of this, we have a superficial testing, and this leads to bugs. Huh? And so if we connect this with an idea, perhaps we will have a test case training, online or offline. So this could be like a red line to prevent bugs in our releases. And so that's the way you would do now in your culture map. So that means you find exactly these courses and these typical red lines in the culture map, which is being provoked by enablers and blockers through behaviors into the outcomes. Now that's your job, but it's not that easy because it's a little bit tricky. Huh? So the thing is, if, for instance, the outcome is positive, huh? So that's not that easy. If the outcome is positive, for instance, the blocker would block a certain behavior to reach the outcome. So this is the first case here, fast project management. So this is of course a good thing. So in this case, the blocker would be daily business. So it's the typical shark situation in your organization because the daily business is eating your strategy. So if the outcome is negative, so like the bugs in the releases, we don't want to have the bugs in our releases. So then a blocker would be positive. So here is the blocker negative, and here's the blocker positive. So that's a little bit tricky, but I think you will figure it out while you're doing the synthesis. Huh? So, okay, so please align your findings. Try, and again, 3 minutes, align your findings, synthesize the enablers through the behaviors into the outcomes. Perhaps you can remember the tree. So this is a nice metaphor. So the enablers and the blockers, if you remember, these are the roots. The behaviors is the trunk of the tree, and the outcomes in the end is the top of the tree and the fruits, the juicy red apples, which will then grow on our tree. So another 3 minutes, please. Yes, as John Alkin said, it's similar to the balanced scorecard approach. So it's well, similar to the root cause analysis. So this would be the same. So it's just that it has been filled with this culture topic. Yes, you're actually totally right. Okay, so how is everybody? So do we have some results? Is there anybody who'd like to present his culture map, perhaps? Or just unmute your microphone and your camera, and you're invited here to share your results and to discuss it with the community here. So who'd like to?
Okay. Should I share this or hi?
Hi. Sorry.
Okay, so now everybody can hear Gabriela presenting?
Yeah.
Yes, great.
Okay, great.
So hi everybody. I'm a Peruvian architect. I'm working in Dessau, and I'm handling international meals with friends in Peru. And we've been having 5 weeks already, and obviously different cultures and different exploring the digital medium has been very complicated, timeframes and everything. So try to put down on the behavior part, especially these areas of experimental and curiosity atmosphere of the new digital form, eating meetups that are our medium and also our product, and the communication through WhatsApp versus communication through calls. And this has lead us to successful great attendance of people attending to these meals, good product delivery between us, the team, and also the invited hosts. But also the digital form has led us to confusion and bad timing reactions, because I'm working with them in Lima, and in Latin America it's like 7 hours behind. And so also I'm doing this as a research for my thesis, and they're doing this as UX designer exploration. So this background information and working culture from academia to actual UX design experience, it's very tough, and it has led us to confusion, a mix of messages in service design, and tension in the team, and unsuccessful communication between us. So I think it has been very helpful, this culture map, into map like how the medium and behavioral practice, or the working practice together, has impact also both the tool and the working culture.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Gabriela. So let's head on with the presentation. Give me a second. Yes. Okay, so thank you very much for this inside view. We are almost done. So now the big question is, how can we put these findings into an operational mode? And of course, what you can do is, following the red line in the document, you just put the enablers and the blockers in a line, and then connect them with the behaviors and the outcome, and then in the end you can prioritize it, or can use these typical evaluation methods to see, okay, is it easy to realize, for instance, this action point over here which you found, and what's the impact, and or is the impact low, is the impact high, and so then you can put your results into an operational mode. Well, of course, this is a typical, or the easiest way to put it into some Excel. So there are other ways, like using Trello, Jira, or I even created from an Excel file a big mind map. So this is really impressive if you then print out a poster and then you put it on the wall, into the social rooms, or into the office, because everybody is sneaking by, and then you have a good object for discussion, for instance. And now I'd like you to give you some tips and tricks. So for instance, I'm using here this timer from YouTube. I'm a facilitator here in the Frankfurt Rhein-Main area, so with Meetup, and of course what I invented during the Corona crisis. So this is my contribution to the Corona crisis. I created these so-called Vigo cards. So that means for my session, I can say, you have been a great team. Thank you very much. Innovation.